Room 13 presents. In the forgotten outskirts of a small, mist-shrouded town stood an old, decrepit hotel, its once radiant facade now reduced to peeling paint and cracked windows. The residents referred to it simply as the Ashwick, though none could recall its history or purpose. The building loomed ominously over the town's single empty street, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe in rhythm with the wind. For Julie Reeves, it was supposed to be just another job. A travel blogger in search of the quaint and obscure, Julie had carved a niche for herself by seeking out places where time seemed to have paused. But as she stood at the foot of the Ashwick, rain pattering against the collar of her raincoat, she felt an unfamiliar trepidation. There was something about the hotel's decaying grandeur that called to her, though she couldn't quite fathom why. The entryway was dimly lit, the flickering bulbs creating a strobe effect that made the dust seem alive. She stepped inside and was swallowed by the murk. The receptionist's desk, if there had ever been one, was buried in shadows. Behind a brass bell, its finish long tarnished, stood a ledger that seemed untouched for decades. A chill ran down her spine as she noticed her name written on the last line. She hadn't made a reservation. Before her mind could linger on the impossibility of it, a voice sliced through her thoughts. "You're here," it announced. Julie spun around to find an old woman standing at the base of a grand staircase. Her face was a landscape of wrinkles, eyes clouded, yet focused, as if she could see far beyond the surface. There was no surprise in her voice, just an air of expectation, of inevitability. "You've been waiting for me?" Julie asked, her voice barely a whisper. The woman nodded. "People come, they stay, they leave." Julie had intended to ask more, but the old woman turned away, leading her down a hallway that seemed to stretch into eternity. The walls were lined with faded portraits, their subjects watching her with eyes that felt almost alive. As they ascended to the second floor, Julie realized she hadn't heard a single sound from another guest. No voices, no TVs, not even the thin music of distant radios. It was as if the entire hotel was holding its breath. The old woman stopped outside a door marked with the number 13. "Your room," she said, handing Julie a small, tarnished key. Julie hesitated. The number seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, drawing her hand forward despite her reluctance. She inserted the key, the lock clicking open with a metallic sigh. The door swung wide to reveal a modest room, impeccably preserved, unlike the rest of the hotel. She was alone. Yet the air was dense, thick with a presence just beyond her comprehension. The wallpaper, though aged, depicted a series of cascading roses, their petals almost wilting in slow motion. A mirror hung opposite the bed, its surface cloudy, reflecting a dim and distorted version of her reality. Settling in, Julie set up her laptop to channel her thoughts, but the internet connection was unstable. No matter, she preferred to write her impressions offline, in raw, unfiltered notes. Still, something about the insulated silence unnerved her. Nightfall came swiftly, enveloped in a dense fog. The hotel was eerily quiet, and Julie found herself drawn out into the hallway, compelled by an invisible thread of curiosity. She wandered the halls, each step echoing like a ghostly whisper. A door creaked open at her touch, revealing darkened corridors leading to closed rooms. In one such room, she thought she saw the silhouette of a figure standing by the window. Heart racing, she flicked on a flashlight and found nothing but a curtain swaying, as if disturbed by a phantom breeze. Her mind raced with rational explanations, but the feeling persisted. She was intruding on something not meant for the living. Her camera captured shadows that shifted on their own, pixels of black and white, height that moved with deliberate independence across her screen. A cold sweat broke over her skin as she reviewed the images back in her room. The following morning, Julie was awoken by the persistent tapping of rain against the window. Another day of gloom. Her dreams had been strange, echoing with forgotten voices and scenes of a life never lived. She heard humming and followed the sound to its source. The old woman, sitting beside a grand piano in the lobby, her fingers ghosting over keys that hadn't produced sound in years. "What happened here?" Julie asked, her curiosity outweighing her fear. The old woman's eyes reflected a sorrow so deep it seemed to pull the light from the room. "The guests," she murmured. "They come with their problems, their desires. This place fulfills them in its own way, but a price must be paid." "What price?" Julie pressed. The answer came as a chill, an understanding that slithered its way into her bones, that the hotel took from you exactly what you sought to leave behind. That night, the air in her room was heavier, oppressive. Sleep came reluctantly, fragmenting into nightmares of endless hallways and faceless portraits. She kept waking, mind burdened by an inexplicable weight. It was in these moments of semi-lucidity that she noticed the mirror. Slowly, she approached. The reflection was muddled, swirling with an unsteady fog. Her own face appeared and flickered away, replaced by another, a man, eyes hollow, mouthing words soundlessly. Her heart pounded louder, each beat resonating with a primal fear. "Who are you?" she whispered, drawn closer as if hypnotized. The mirror did not respond, but the image shifted, morphed, and finally settled on a vision. Her own eyes, but they were not her own. They were deeper, ancient. The hotel was speaking in its own secret language. Panic clawed its way up her throat. Julie stumbled backwards, her mind whirling. She had to leave, to escape the clutches of this eerie place. At dawn, she gathered her belongings hastily, every shadow in the room a watching eye. As she reached the lobby, the old woman waited, an enigmatic smile playing on her lips. "Leaving already?" she asked, her voice a soft ripple. Julie nodded, the words too heavy to form. But before she could exit, the old woman placed a hand on hers, a fleeting touch that sent shivers through Julie's core. "Remember, you took something with you." Julie fled, the hotel's atmosphere clinging to her like a second skin. Outside, the town's fog seemed to lift just slightly, offering a clearer path away from the Ashwick. But the unsettling feeling persisted. Something followed her, and no matter the distance, wouldn't let her forget. Back home, in the familiar confines of her apartment, Julie hoped to find refuge. But the shadows in the corner seemed to stretch longer than they should. The mirror in her bathroom sometimes clouded suddenly, images just out of focus flickering at the edges. One night, a chill settled over her as she lay in bed. Moments later, her phone buzzed with a notification. A message with no sender, no number, only text that sent ice into her veins. "Do you see me?" Dropping the phone, she spun around, searching for the source of the impossible message. Her apartment was silent, betraying nothing of its secrets. Desperation led her to the photos she'd taken at the hotel. She scrutinized each image, searching for answers, clues, anything to break the suffocating cycle. Patterns emerged amid the pixels, faces hidden within the shadows. Distorted and blurred, they awakened a terrible realization. The hotel was alive. It had imprinted itself upon her, weaving its existence into the very fabric of her perception. She felt its whispers in the walls, its eyes in the darkness. In an effort to cope, Julie began documenting her experiences in a journal, an anchor to reality, a way to make sense of the madness. But as the days blended into a nightmarish haze, even the journal's ink seemed to move of its own accord, forming words she didn't recall writing. One entry stood out, a phrase penned in her hand but flowing with an unfamiliar elegance. "We are with you forever." Julie knew then that the Ashwick's presence had left with her, existed now within her, a haunting she couldn't shake. It whispered in her dreams, wove itself into her waking world, a parasite of the mind that blurred the line between past and present. She debated returning, confronting it, seeking answers from the old woman who had become the guardian of its secrets. But another part of her, a part that had grown louder with each passing day, whispered that returning might complete the cycle, trap her within the Ashwick's grasp indefinitely. Yet, deep down, the draw remained, a dark undertow pulling her back to the shadows of room 13, to the very place where mysteries whispered and memories became tangible specters. Julie stood at the edge of her decision, teetering between the known and the unknowable. As the fog rolled in like a tide over her thoughts, she understood. There's a delicate balance between haunting and being haunted, and once the boundary is crossed, there's no return. But perhaps, just perhaps, she was willing to traverse that shadowed path, to uncover what lay beyond the door marked room 13, to seek answers within the echoing halls of the Ashwick. Before becoming one with the silent, spectral voices that linger eternally in the shadows,